With us is former Finance Minister P Chidambaram. He needs no introduction. I'll be interacting with him on the Union Budget 2022-23 presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Tuesday. My first question to you, Mr. Chidambaram, is that the budget's focus is on capex-led economic recovery. What is your take on this strategy, given that the economy is struggling to come out of the COVID-induced slowdown?
Our problem is not lack of capital. Our problem is lack of jobs. In India, unemployment is at a very high level. Urban unemployment rate is about 8.2%. Rural unemployment rate, which is mostly because of disguised unemployment, is about 5.6%. What we need is job-creating investments, not capital-intensive investments. We have abundant capital. We don't have jobs. Therefore, I protest, I reject an approach which is based on capital-intensive investment.
You have criticized the budget on fiscal prudence too, but had the budget addressed so many concerns of the economy that you have underlined, had that not widened the fiscal deficit much wider?
No, I'm not unhappy that they did not compress the fiscal deficit too much. This is a time when there must be fiscal liberalization. So I'm not unhappy about that. Please read my statement. I pointed out that you are reiterating that you will reach the 4% fiscal deficit target in 2025-26. That is 3 years from today. 22-23, 23-24, 25-26. And in 25-26, you will present a budget of 4% FT. If that is your goal, this compression for next year is not sufficient. This compression for next year is only 0.4 or 0.5. You will have to still compress about 2.5% in the remaining 2 years. How are you going to do that? Therefore, if that goal is correct, this compression is insufficient, is what I pointed out. For this year, I'm willing to live with a 6.8 or a 6.9% deficit.
You also said that huge market borrowings by the government will crowd out private investment, but the government believes that this will crowd in private sector investment. What's your take?
This is unusual economic theory. So far, I've heard every governor, every finance minister says, if the government borrows too much from the market, it will crowd out private borrowing because the private sector will not have enough money to borrow in the market. And even if money is available, the interest rate will be high. This is what we have heard for the last 20 years. Today, you turn it around on its head and say, if government borrows more, it will crowd in private investment. Now, this is illogical. Either what you said for 20 years is wrong or what you say now is wrong. I think what you say now is wrong.
You also said that there is not a single word about raising more resources from the rich or super rich. 142 persons whose wealth you said has increased from 23 lakh crore to around 53 lakh crore. So had this been resorted to, a tax on super rich or some kind of more surcharge, don't you think that it would have scared wealth creators?
No, I'm not against wealth creation. Please understand, I support creation of wealth. I even support accumulation of wealth because new wealth is new capital is new investment. Creation of wealth and accumulation of wealth helps in risk-taking, innovation, R&D, charity, and many other uses. I'm nothing against wealthy people. I'm nothing against wealth creation. I'm nothing against even wealth accumulation. The point is, at what point should wealth accumulation stop? Shall we say 100 crore? Shall we say 200 crore? Shall we say 1,000 crore? shall we say, $1 billion or 7,500 crore? Put some ceiling, some cap somewhere. What is this 53 lakh crore wealth for 142 people? What does it mean? It means something like 3 lakh crore rupees is the average wealth of these 142 people. Now, you've got 3 lakh crore and it'll perhaps grow this year and grow next year. When will this stop? Remember that old story where a man will say, all that you can walk and measure between sunrise and sunset is your land. So he started walking. He walked east to north, then north to west, west to south. And then he got greedy. He said, let me walk a little more. Let me walk a little more. Let me walk a little more. The sun was setting. He finally walked fast to his starting point, and he thought he had got more land than he ought to have got if he had walked normally. And he died when he reached the starting point. And ultimately, what he got land was 6 foot by 4 foot, 6 feet by 4 feet. So, at what point does accumulation of wealth stop? All I'm saying is, if there are so many wealthy people, wealthy means beyond your imagination, my imagination. You should tap into that wealth.
You described the budget as a capitalist budget. Why such a sudden angst against capitalism?
I'm not. I made it very clear. I have no angst against capitalism. I believe that regulated capitalism is a driver of a competitive economy, and a competitive economy grows faster, creates more wealth, and it can share more wealth among the people. I have nothing against capitalism. But at the same time, there must be welfare. Now tell me, there is not a word about cash assistance to the very poor. Not a word about 4.6 crore people who've been pushed into extreme poverty. Not a word for those who lost jobs. Not a word about the 60 lakh MSMEs which have been shut down. Not a word of comfort, not a gesture to the 84% of households which have lost income. Not a word about the learning loss of our school-going children in the last 2 years, especially in rural areas and in government schools. Not a word of intervention in malnutrition, stunting, and wasting. Now, if you don't have a word to say about these poor, deprived, suffering people, yet you paint this as a growth-oriented budget, for whose growth is this budget? Therefore, I called it a capitalist budget. It is written and prepared and written and delivered only from the capitalist point of view.
What would you have done in the budget in a few steps had you been the finance minister this time around too?
A finance minister under Mr. Narendra Modi has nothing to do. The finance minister is to only read a speech drafted in the PMO. So you must tell me, finance minister under which prime minister?
Say under Manmohan Singh.
A finance minister under Dr. Manmohan Singh would, in 22-23, with the guidance of Dr. Manmohan Singh, crafted a budget that emphasizes the first W, work. How do you create jobs? The second W, welfare. How do you reach out and make gestures or comfort people who have suffered in the last 2 years? And the third W, wealth. How do you create wealth? All three Ws would have been balanced in a Dr. Manmohan Singh government's budget.
You also said that people will vote out this budget. So do you see adverse reaction from the people from this budget in the 5 assembly elections?
Well, I can't speak about each election, but all I can point out is this morning Times of India on the front page has published a survey of 10,000 readers. Look at the results of the survey. Fully 80% have said this budget has nothing for me or my family. Fully 80%. More important, 50% of the 10,000 respondents have said this budget has nothing for India. So 50% say this budget is nothing for India, and 80% say this budget is nothing for me or my family. I have to conclude that this budget has been rejected by most people.
Earlier in our interview, you said that there is no dearth of capital, but private sector investment is still lagging. It's subdued, muted, isn't it?
Not because of lack of capital, but because capacity utilization has fallen to about 45% or 50%. If capacity utilization is below 50% or below 55%, why would anybody make a new investment? It's not lack of capital. FDI is pouring in, according to the government. There is enough wealth in the country, as I pointed out. 142 people have 53 lakh crore wealth. So there's enough wealth in the country. There's enough income in the country, rise in corporate taxes, rise in personal income tax. So money is not the issue. It is the lack of demand and the low capacity utilization of existing businesses.
But will you credit the finance minister or this government that they have not succumbed to the pressure of populism even when assembly elections are around?
What they are saying is 5 elections around the corner. I would have normally been populist. This time I've restrained myself. I have not been populist. So you've not committed a wrong. And you want to congratulate the finance minister for not doing a wrong? You have to do the right thing if you need my congratulations. For not doing wrong, I don't congratulate anybody.
And you also said that finance minister was outlining a plan for the next 25 years, whereas the need is the present crisis. So in a way, you are reiterating the Keynesian quote that in the long run, we are all dead. But the budget can't be addressing only short-term needs. It has to have some long-term objectives also.
Who says no? The finance minister made brave to say 25 years because she knows she will not be finance minister after 25 years. The prime minister went a step further. It's a 100-year plan, 100-year budget. He knows he will not be here after 100 years. Nor will you be there, nor will I be there. Leave that aside. What does the Constitution say? It's an annual financial statement. All right. You must have a longer term view for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years. What is this 25 year? What is this voodoo economics? 25 years is a mirage. You don't see the sea of humanity before you. 84% of the households have lost incomes. 60 lakh MSMEs have been closed down. People are in debt. People have lost jobs. 4.6 crore people have been pushed into extreme poverty. That is the sea of humanity before you. You are saying, I'm looking beyond the sea of humanity at some horizon which you and I can't see. And I'm planning for that. What kind of a mockery of the poor and the present it is? You plan for this year, next year, and then outline a vision. You have no plan for this year, you have no plan for next year, and I'm outlining a Amrit Kal. What is this? The present is a Rahu Kal, is it?
You also said that the budget is relying on increase in corporation tax by 85,000 crore, personal income tax by 85,000 crore, and GST by 1,05,000 crore. Do you think these are ambitious projections?
Well, whether they're ambitious or not, I can't say because I have not looked into the information based on which they have made these projections. The point is, they are expecting 85,000 crore more than the current year in the next year, more than the current year in corporate profits, which means what? Corporate taxation is 15 or 25. Let's take it even as 25. If the government is going to get an extra 85,000 crore, it means that the corporate sector will get 250,000 crore extra profit. They keep 75%, they give to the government 85%, 25%. So the corporate sector will get 250,000 crore more profit and government will get 85,000 crore. Likewise, in personal income tax, if you take the average rate as about 15 or 20%, if the government is expecting 85,000 crore, which means the private individual taxpayers are going to reap profits of about 500,000 crore. So these projections are a little ambitious, but I don't want to come to any final conclusion because I don't have the data based on which these projections have been made.
You also said that every kind of subsidy was cut in the budget, but don't you think this is part of fiscal prudence?
Wrong. Absolutely wrong. People are suffering from high inflation today. WPI has crossed 12% and CPI is touching the upper limit of 6%. In such a situation, when inflation is high, people have lost jobs, lost incomes, and they are suffering because of the pandemic. This is not the time to cut subsidy. Take petroleum. Crude oil prices have touched $90 a barrel. So petroleum prices will normally rise. The government has contained it because of the elections. You take it from me, after the date of counting, petroleum prices will rise. In such a situation, current year, you've got a petroleum subsidy of 6,517 crore. And next year, you are reducing the subsidy for 5,813 crore. What is the signal? The signal is crude oil prices will rise. I'm cutting my subsidy. Be prepared. Prices will rise. Same thing with fertilizer. From 1,40,000 crore subsidy in the current year, next year you've reduced it by almost 1/3 to 1,05,000 crore. So what do they tell the farmers? Brace yourself. Fertilizer prices are going to rise. On food subsidy, this is the cruelest cut. 2,86,219 crore is the current year subsidy. You have cut it to 2,06,481 crore. A cut of 80,000 crore. That is about a 40% cut. What does that mean? Either you will reduce the ration quantity, which is difficult. Therefore, you will increase the price.
How much do you think the finance minister could have stretched the fiscal deficit?
No, I don't think she should have stretched the fiscal deficit. She hasn't. This year, against 6.8, she has touched 6.9. And I think for next year, she has kept it at 6.4.
6.4.
6.4. She has compressed it by 0.5, which I welcome for next year. I don't think she should have compressed more, because if she had compressed more, she would have had to cut back on expenditure or raise more taxes. She was in no position to raise more taxes because her capitalist friends are looking over her shoulder, and she can't afford to cut back expenditure, because if you cut back expenditure, you will cut back growth. So I think she's right in keeping the fiscal deficit at 6.4 for the next year. All I'm pointing out is then push back your goal of reaching 4% in 2025-26. That's not achievable.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Chidambaram.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.